In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a large French farthingale using the pattern available in the Tudor Tailor. So let's get started. To start out, I marked off some key points on the pattern itself for transferring it onto paper. And once again, I marked out all of the points. And now you're going to see me transfer it onto a grid paper. And I do this basically counting dots. It's like a dot transfer type thing. I used to do I think I learned this in math class. I don't recall, but I used this method and this took me about an hour to do. And the top side actually isn't very clean. So what I'll do to refine it is actually draw over it in Sharpie. And then I'm going to flip it over and refine all of those edges so that it will not only be a mirror on one half, but it'll also be a little bit more like eligible to read while I actually make my French farthingale. I also take this time to label the front, the back, and like which all of the hoop, and I will even measure each hoop, even though I don't actually cut all of the pieces to measurement. I actually just put them in and cut them once they're in. You'll see that later. I will still do it like this. And now I'm going to transfer it onto my Buckram. And it says on the pattern to use canvas. I didn't have any canvas lying around, but for some reason I had several yards of Buckram. So here I am transferring it to Buckram, and then I'll transfer it again to 2 layers of cotton. It says 1 layer of fashion fabric. Since Buckram is a little scratchy and I just didn't like the way it looked, I used cotton. And this is the back of it where you will get in and out. Now I'm going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance everywhere. I'm drawing out my allowance, and then I'm actually going to mark all of my channels. And I do this on the cotton, and this is going to be the underside of it. So I'll actually mark out all of my channels, and I'm cutting up the pattern so that I can mark them properly and get a good idea of where they are. And then I just add 1 inch so that there's plenty of space for my 1/2 inch boning. And then I'm going to do the tedious step of actually pinning and sewing all of this down. So this part is like the bulk of the work, is just pinning and sewing 4 days. So I'm actually going to sew this on a basting stitch. So we're going to have a 4mm stitch length. And the purpose of sewing it on this is just because it is creating the channels, and it'll go a little bit faster. Plus I'm going through 3 layers of fabric, so it'll be just a little bit easier to go through on my machine. To make the waistband, I create a 2 inch by 28 inch strip of fabric. I'm using the cotton once again, and I'm actually cutting it on the selvage. And then I'm also going to cut out like little cases for the back 7 inch pieces of hooping wire. There's like a little bit of a piece in the back that I will create to keep the back up a little bit more. And this is all out of cotton, and then I'm just going to pin it on. And this I'm actually going to sew on at this point, and I'm going to hand stitch it at the end. So I will sew it on, and then I'll leave it and come back to it near the end of the process. But then I'll also make little tubes out of the other pieces for my bones. Before adding my boning, I actually add the binding to the edge of it because the binding is so close to the boning channel. I would much rather not have to like sew on binding at the end. So we do it before we add our boning, and I'm also going to add it to one side of the opening so that when I'm putting my boning into my channel, it has somewhere to actually full stop instead of accidentally like pushing it through to the other side. So you'll see here, I am adding a strip to one of the sides. And now I am inserting the boning into the channels, although I'm falling off of screen a lot. I use duct tape to cover the edges, and I'm actually using 1/2 inch hooping wire that is 2 pieces of steel covered in plastic. This is my preferred type of boning, but it is $5 a yard, so I really don't use it as often as I do other types of boning. Once my boning is in place, I'm going to add the other strip of binding and it will all be secure inside the channels. I'm also going to turn my little boning channels inside out, and these 2 get sewn to the back. So you'll see I'll cut 2 7-inch pieces and put them in their tube. And this is really, the tubing is just for aesthetics. Like, it just looks better and a better way to attach it. And then finally, I sew it all up. And the last step is to hand sew the waistband, which you'll see right here. And then I also take that, and I don't do it on camera, but I hand sew the 7-inch pieces to the back. And this is how it looks on. It's supposed to fit underneath a pair, or on top of a pair of bodies, but tucked into the tabs in the front. I'm not using this for historical purposes, so I won't wear it like that. So it's not really going to tilt forward like it does here. However, I am going to put a bum roll underneath it to keep that weight up just a little bit. And I'll make the bum roll in our next video, actually. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like my content, consider joining my Patreon, where we make lots of things and chat, and it's a grand old time. Until next time, happy sewing!